Welcome to Red Gum Barbecue on the magnificent Mornington Peninsula. I'm Martin, I'm the owner pitmaster here at Red Gum Barbecue, and today we're going to cook pulled pork. So if you're new to barbecuing and smoking, you've probably heard a lot about pulled pork. It's one of the easiest things to smoke and cook. It's very forgiving in the smoker, and it's something perfect for all occasions. So if you're inviting friends and family over, cook yourself up a pork shoulder and feed your family. So I'm going to describe a little bit about the cut itself. Essentially, pulled pork comes from the shoulder. In America, it's called a Boston butt. Here in Australia, you can call it a pork shoulder. The way I get this lovely cut of meat for the restaurant, it's rind off, hock up, all the way up to the scapula, which is your shoulder blade, which is this piece here, and then it's spine off. So you're left with this square cut piece of meat. You can also get pulled pork from another cut here in Australia called the collar butt, which is essentially neck or scotch. It'll have no bone in it, very easy to cook, very forgiving, will come out perfect pretty much every time if you just follow the things that I say. So here at Red Gum Barbecue, we believe in free range. So all the pigs that we use are free range hogs. They get to exhibit natural behaviours, wallow in mud, dig in the dirt for food. And this is something that has been a cornerstone of our business since day dot. So I encourage you to use free range pork as best as you can. Let's get straight on to trimming. We get these delivered like this. So like I said before, spine off, rind off, hock off. You're left with this beautiful cut of meat. Only thing I'm going to do is if there's anything hanging about, get yourself a boner knife. Don't forget your boner knife. If there's anything hanging off this cut, just trim it up. So I see there's a little piece hanging off here. So we'll take that off. We'll turn that into sausage later. I'm just looking around it, making sure there's nothing just that I think is going to crisp and burn up too much. Just trimming that back. Anything that looks a bit too yuck, that you wouldn't fancy eating yourself, don't keep it on there. But essentially, this has come in absolutely perfect, so I'm not going to do too much with it. Right, there we go. That's your top. That's where your rind used to be. You can see that by that layer of fat sitting over the top there. That's your underneath. That's where your spine was. What we do with this is that we make a sugar-based spice rub for it. And during the cooking process, it will start to darken and create this thing called bark. Bark is where the flavour's at. Smoke only penetrates a little bit, very small amount into your meat. So all that flavour is concentrated very close to the surface. As smoke flows over the top of this, it clings and it hangs on. So what I do, I'll get myself a bowl. I like bold flavours, always have done, will continue to do so. I know certain places like to let the more of the meat flavour shine through. I'm down with that, but I think your spice rub that sits on the surface of your meat should pack a little bit of flavour. So, what I like to do, I never start with sugar. Never ever start with sugar. If you start with sugar, as you work your rub, it starts to clump and stick together. So what I like to do, I like to start with all my dry ingredients. So we've got paprika here. Paprika's for colour. That's magic stuff. Cumin, very strong. Pop that in, not as much as your paprika. Onion powder. Pop some of that in. Garlic powder. That's just to add some more flavour. Salt. I can't talk about salt enough. So when you're reading all those American cookbooks and they're talking about kosher salt's extremely hard to find here in Australia. So what we use is either cooking salt or table salt. Table salt is much smaller crystals. So you use half the amount of table salt compared to kosher salt that it says in a cookbook. That way you won't be in a situation, which I've had, where you've used too much salt and what you've cooked for hours tastes awful. So half the amount. So table salt goes in. So then we grab some cracked black pepper, pour that in. Then we go sugar. This is turbinado, demerara, raw sugar, whatever you want to call it. It goes in. This has a much higher burn point. Then you've got your brown sugar, that's for your molasses. That's for that really, really rich, dark molassesy flavour. So what you do now, it's all in there. You mix it through. You totally mix it through. Keep it, work it, and you should end up with something that hasn't very many clumps in it. You clumpy, you just get a pocket. Imagine eating a pocket of paprika. I can't imagine it's very nice. So you just keep working it through so there's no clumps. And then you get to a stage where it's absolutely bang on. So it should be mixed nicely through. You shouldn't see any clumps of garlic powder or onion powder or anything like that. And that's what it should look like. Nice and evenly spread through your rub. Everything should be in there. So, lots of people talk about next stage being adding a layer of oil. I don't add oil. Oil acts as a barrier to smoke. I used to use it, I've gone off it. What I've found is just a nice layer of water. Just to cover the surface, cover the underneath, just give it this layer of water. Rub it on all sides, underneath. The smoke will mix with this water, it'll become soluble and it'll penetrate into your meat. I believe water is the best way to go. So some people use mustard, some people use lots of different things to create this first layer. But I just believe in water, and that's what we do here at the restaurant now. Then, what I'll do, I'll just transfer my pork butt over to my tray. I like to start on the underneath first, and I like to get my rub in a cup, and I like to just sprinkle it over the top very thinly, thin layer. Don't really know why they call it rub, because it's more of a, I'll show you, it's a bit more of a slap or just a pat. But I'm sure it's a historic thing, I'm sure. So, next time, over the top, big sprinkle. Put it over there, give it a pat, knock any excess off. Excess. Knock any excess off, keep going. Same again, give it a pat. On the sides, don't forget about anything. On the sides, give it a pat. And you'll have a nicely evenly coated pork butt, pork shoulder, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same to me. Now this is totally covered. I'm going to leave this. I leave this for 15 minutes. I let it do, I let it to draw the moisture out of the pork shoulder to the surface. So all those, soluble spices and sugar and salt are there, broken down. It won't be dry. It will create a nice bark and be a beautiful flavour. So that's how we do it. So if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and follow us in part 2 where we'll be taking this over to the cooker.